They can't just take it, Elena whispered, her voice tight with fury, as she slapped the official Pine Ridge Estates Association letter onto our kitchen counter. The paper felt heavy, almost sinister, as I picked it up, my hands trembling. The words blurred. Something about flood hazards. Our Willow Creek spring, bubbling on my family's land for over 80 years, was suddenly a danger, according to the PREA. It felt like a punch to the gut, turning our quiet life upside down. Olivia Vance, the association president, had disliked my spring from the moment she moved in 8 months prior. I remembered her first neighborhood tour. She'd pointed a manicured finger at it, calling it a messy mud patch. "It really drags down the aesthetic," she'd sniffed, completely ignoring that this mud patch nourished local deer and kept our corner of Pine Ridge Estates cooler during the brutal summer heat. Now, this letter gave me 21 days. Eliminate the spring or face daily fines of $400. Bile rose in my throat. This wasn't just water. It was tied to memories of my Uncle Arthur. He'd carefully laid the stone paths surrounding it, planted the maples that now towered 35 feet high. He taught me how to skip stones across its glassy surface when I was just 6 years old. 3 days later, I walked into the emergency PREA meeting. My briefcase held photos showcasing the spring's beauty across seasons and a petition signed by 15 supportive neighbors. Olivia presided like royalty at the front table, flanked by her usual allies on the board. Brenda, my next-door neighbor, the one who always borrowed flour, sat right beside Olivia, pointedly avoiding my gaze. That stung. "The spring presents a considerable foundation risk to this community," Olivia declared, waving a hefty document. "This hydrology report confirms potential flooding could result in thousands of dollars in property damage." My legs felt shaky, but I stood tall. "That spring predates every house here," I stated, keeping my voice level. "We've never had a single flood issue related to it. Circumstances evolve. Groundwater levels fluctuate," Olivia replied smoothly, her smile never reaching her eyes. "We cannot gamble with our residents' safety over mere sentiment." "What safety?" I pressed. "The closest home with young children is 4 streets over." A low murmur filled the room. Some neighbors exchanged knowing glances, nodding slightly. Others looked anxious, whispering about home values and insurance premiums. Brenda suddenly spoke, her voice unusually loud. "I've definitely noticed more insects lately. Stagnant water is a health hazard." She still wouldn't look at me. It hit me then. This wasn't about floods or safety. Olivia wanted my property value diminished. I remembered overhearing her at the fall cookout, talking to some investor type about unlocking land potential in our area. She likely wanted her associate to snap up my land cheap. "I want to review this hydrology report," I demanded. "Who performed the assessment? Were they ever even on my property?" Olivia's smile faltered for a second. "The report details are confidential, naturally, to shield the expert from potential undue influence." "That's not standard procedure for property assessments," called out Mr. Davies, a retired attorney living down the lane. "A homeowner absolutely has the right to see any reports concerning their own land." Olivia's cheeks flushed pink. "We're not here to get bogged down in technicalities. All in favor of the spring removal?" 6 hands shot up immediately, the board members and their closest associates. The motion carried. As the meeting broke up, I intercepted Brenda near the exit. "Brenda, why? Your grandkids loved feeding the mallards at my spring." She glanced around, fidgeting. "Olivia promised she'd fast-track approval for my sunroom addition if I voted with her. We really need the space when my son visits." My stomach dropped. Olivia wasn't just leading, she was bribing her way. The drive home was a blur. How could I fight this rigged system? Sleep wouldn't come that night. Around 1:30 a.m., engine sounds rumbled outside. Peeking through the blinds, I saw 2 utility trucks parked near my property line. Figures moved stealthily in the dim light, hauling equipment towards Willow Creek Spring. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and a flashlight, dashing outside in my sweats. Hold it! This is private land." The figures froze. One man stepped into the light. "Kevin, PREA maintenance supervisor. Just taking some initial measurements. Board authorized." At 1:30 in the morning? Without informing me? Olivia Vance materialized from the darkness, holding a clipboard like a shield. "The PREA retains 24-hour access for urgent safety evaluations. Check your homeowner agreement." "This isn't an evaluation. You're planning to drain it, aren't you?" Her smile was ice cold. "We're simply being proactive for community well-being. Please go back inside." I didn't budge until they finally packed up and left, but a sense of dread settled over me. They'd be back. The following morning, I contacted 3 attorneys. The first 2 hung up almost immediately after hearing HOA conflict. The third quoted a $4,500 retainer just to look at the paperwork. Feeling desperate, I headed to the municipal archives. After hours hunched over dusty records, I found something explosive. The hydrology expert Olivia had contracted, her own brother-in-law. Even worse, his professional license had been suspended 3 years prior for submitting fraudulent reports. Digging deeper, I unearthed records showing Pine Ridge Estates was developed atop an old watershed. My spring wasn't just a pretty feature. It acted as a vital natural pressure release for the underground water system. Blocking it? That could spell disaster for the whole neighborhood. Armed with this damning evidence, I formally requested another PREA meeting. Olivia promptly denied it, claiming no substantive new information. But I wasn't done. I quickly built a basic website outlining everything. The spring's 80-year history, photos, the truth about the sham hydrology report, and the surveyor's suspended license. I posted the link on our neighborhood online forum. Within hours, the comment section lit up. Older residents shared fond memories of the spring. Others began questioning the board's hasty decision. A couple of board members even messaged me privately, admitting they'd felt railroaded into voting yes. Olivia retaliated swiftly, having PREA lawyers send me cease and desist notices alleging defamation. But facts aren't defamation, and I refuse to be silenced. The real shift occurred when Mrs. Gable, a resident for 55 years, added her voice. That spring was a lifesaver during the 1982 dry spell, she wrote. When city water pressure dropped, we all relied on Willow Creek Spring for drinking water. It's not just scenery, it's essential. Her comment resonated. People started sharing their own stories, their growing doubts about Olivia's real motives. The community sentiment was visibly shifting, but Olivia wasn't backing down. That evening, an anonymous call came through. Take down the website, or you'll wish you had. The voice was electronically altered, but the menace was clear. The roar of heavy machinery shattered the dawn stillness. Industrial pumps lined my property edge, engines screaming as they began sucking water from Willow Creek Spring. Olivia Vance stood overseeing the operation, chic sunglasses masking her expression, while Kevin directed workers in bright safety vests. I sprinted outside, still in my pajamas. Stop this. You can't legally do this. Olivia turned, completely unfazed. Rule 9, subsection B of the PREA bylaws grants authority to address immediate safety threats. She waved some official-looking papers. Judge Martell signed an emergency injunction late last night. My spring, a source of clear, cool water for generations, was vanishing before my eyes into a churning mud hole. 80-year-old water lilies wilted as the level plummeted. A small family of ducks paddled frantically near the edge of their shrinking home. I called the emergency line, but the dispatcher classified it as a civil dispute. I contacted Animal Rescue about the displaced wildlife, but they required 72 hours notice for non-emergencies. A wave of helplessness washed over me as my family's heritage disappeared down thick industrial hoses. Elena came out, phone held high, recording the entire scene. "This is outrageous," she choked out, her voice trembling with anger. Kevin approached her. "Ma'am, please stop recording. This is internal PREA activity." "This is my property," I shot back, "and that's my spring you're obliterating." By lunchtime, it was over. A barren crater of cracked mud lay where water once shimmered. The nearby maple trees already looked stressed, their leaves beginning to curl inward. Brenda appeared at her fence line later that afternoon, busily planting new azaleas. "Shame about your water feature," she commented casually, not meeting my eyes. "But our property values should certainly rise now." I stared at her, unable to process her callousness. "Do you have any idea that spring replenished the groundwater for this entire section?" She shrugged dismissively. Olivia assured us the municipal water system is more than sufficient. That night, I met with Ben, a hydrologist buddy from university. He spread my property maps and historical surveys across his desk, his expression growing graver by the minute. "This is bad, man," he finally muttered. "Really bad. Your spring wasn't just aesthetic. It served as a crucial pressure relief valve for the whole local aquifer system. So what happens now that it's gone? Water seeks equilibrium. It'll find the easiest path out, likely upwards, through basements and foundations." A small spark of grim hope ignited within me. If I could scientifically prove the spring's critical role, Maybe I could compel them to restore it. We spent the next week collecting hard data. Ben discreetly installed monitoring devices around the neighborhood, tracking soil saturation and groundwater levels. The readings were deeply troubling. Underground pressure was escalating fast. I attempted to present this urgent data at the following PREA meeting, but Olivia had anticipated me. Effective immediately, only board members may propose agenda items, she announced with a smug smile. Frustrated but determined, I took the story public. A local news outlet picked it up. Historic neighborhood spring destroyed by HOA. Reporters interviewed Mrs. Gable about the 1982 dry spell. Environmental advocacy groups issued statements condemning the PREA's actions. Olivia countered with her own media offensive. She hired a slick PR agency, Veritas Communications, to portray me as a disgruntled homeowner peddling falsehoods. Veritas released polished statements about infrastructure modernization and protecting families. The conflict intensified. Olivia slapped me with a defamation lawsuit. I countersued for destruction of property. Legal fees began piling up on both sides. Then, the inevitable happened. The first basement flooded. The Williamsons, living 5 doors down, woke to 4 inches of murky water, ruining their newly finished rec room. Their insurance company deemed it groundwater intrusion, an uncovered peril. 3 days later, the Martinezes found water seeping through their foundation walls. Then the Chengs reported cracks appearing in their patio. Then Brenda. I watched from my window as Brenda frantically worked a sump pump in her basement. Her recently planted azaleas now drowning in soggy soil. A part of me felt a grim satisfaction, but mostly, I just felt profound sadness. This entire disaster was avoidable. Emergency PREA meetings became almost nightly occurrences. Panicked residents demanded explanations. Olivia continued to deflect blame. These appear to be isolated plumbing issues, she insisted. Likely old pipes, inadequate lot grading, unrelated to the spring project. But Ben's ongoing monitoring painted a starkly different picture. The aquifer, deprived of its natural outlet, was forcing water upward through every tiny fissure. The whole area's water table was becoming dangerously unstable. I shared Ben's latest charts and graphs on the neighborhood forum. The comments section exploded. My sump pump hasn't shut off in 3 days. There's water bubbling up in my flower beds now. My foundation contractor quoted $60,000 for repairs. Property values started to tank. 3 for sale signs popped up overnight. The local news returned, this time with sharper headlines. HOA decision triggers neighborhood flooding crisis. Olivia grew visibly desperate. She tried blaming the city's infrastructure, unusual weather patterns, climate change, anything except her own reckless decision. She even insinuated that I might have deliberately sabotaged neighborhood drainage systems. But the real game changer came when Mr. Davies, the retired lawyer, did some sleuthing. Always follow the money, he advised me over coffee. Olivia's brother-in-law doesn't just perform questionable surveys. He owns Cascade Drainage Solutions. Our investigation uncovered the truth. Olivia had steered a $1.8 million contract to her brother-in-law's company to manage the escalating water problems in Pine Ridge Estates. The very company that drained my spring was now positioned to profit enormously from fixing the crisis that drainage had created. I immediately filed a detailed complaint with the State Oversight Board. Investigators arrived within days. They subpoenaed PREA financial records, conducted interviews with board members, and meticulously documented the spreading water damage across the neighborhood. Olivia attempted a quiet resignation, but residents, now furious, demanded a public accounting. The community hall meeting was standing room only. Angry homeowners waved soggy repair estimates and insurance denial letters. When Olivia approached the microphone, she was met with a chorus of boos. She tried to speak of unforeseen geological shifts and acting in good faith, but the crowd wasn't listening. Then, I played my final card. Elena had kept recording that fateful morning. Barely audible over the pump noise in one clip, Olivia could be heard saying to Kevin, "Once these property values dip, my investor partners will sweep in and buy the whole street cheap. We'll all make fortunes." The hall erupted. Shouts of "fraud" and "arrest her" echoed off the walls. Several board members resigned on the spot. Brenda stood up, tearfully apologizing and admitting Olivia had promised her preferential treatment for her vote. State investigators, present at the meeting, took Olivia into custody right there. She faced multiple charges: fraud, conspiracy, and misappropriation of association funds. Her brother-in-law's company declared bankruptcy shortly after. The developer scheme imploded. But our ordeal was far from over. The neighborhood was still saturated. Insurance companies officially declared it a man-made disaster, voiding most coverage. Homeowners stared at financial ruin. Ultimately, it required a federal disaster area declaration to secure meaningful assistance. Teams of engineers worked for months, designing and implementing systems to restore the natural underground water flow. My spring was carefully rebuilt, though experts warned it would take years for the delicate ecosystem to fully recover. The total cost? Over $8.5 million. Most was covered by Olivia's confiscated assets and the PREA's liability insurance. She received a 12-year prison sentence. Brenda now heads a completely reformed PREA, one focused on transparency and environmental sustainability. She often tends a small memorial garden near where my spring flows once more, teaching visiting school groups about the critical importance of respecting natural systems. As for me, I learned a powerful lesson. Sometimes the most potent justice isn't about plotting revenge. It's about exposing the truth and letting nature inevitably find its own balance. Water always finds its level, and eventually, so does the truth. The frantic knocking jolted me awake. My phone screen glowed. 2:45 a.m. Who could be here now? Through the peephole, I saw my neighbor Tom, soaked and panicked. "The water's everywhere," he gasped as I swung the door open. "My entire basement is flooded, 4 inches deep already." I grabbed my coat, a knot tightening in my stomach. Something was terribly wrong. Tom lived uphill from me. Water shouldn't be backing up like that unless... The next day was a blur of musty files at the municipal archives. The clerk eyed me curiously as I requested older and older maps, but I had to understand. And then I found it. A 1961 hydrology report clearly showing Pine Ridge Estates was built directly over natural subterranean water channels. My Willow Creek Spring wasn't just a charming feature. It was integral to a complex system regulating water pressure for the entire area. By capping it, Olivia had effectively turned our neighborhood into a ticking water bomb. Back home, I called Ben, my hydrologist friend. "You guys are sitting on a potential disaster," he confirmed grimly after reviewing the report scans. That spring was like a natural safety valve. Block it, and the pressure builds until the water forces its way out elsewhere, usually through foundations and basements. I needed undeniable proof. Using borrowed ground-penetrating radar equipment over the next few days, I mapped the subsurface water movement beneath our streets. The results were alarming. Underground water pressure had nearly doubled in just 2 weeks since the spring was drained. At this trajectory, significant portions of the neighborhood could face serious structural damage by springtime. The subsequent PREA meeting was tense. Residents lined up complaining about perpetually damp basements, new cracks in driveways, and strange soggy patches appearing in their lawns. Olivia sat at the head table, radiating calm in her expensive pantsuit. "These appear to be isolated issues," she reiterated smoothly, shuffling through papers. "Our drainage consultant assured the board—" "Your consultant never set foot on the property," I interrupted, standing and holding up the 1961 hydrology report. "This document proves our spring was essential for managing groundwater." Brenda leaped to her feet defensively. "Olivia has helped increase our property values by 18%. Why listen to him over our proven board president?" A wave of uncertain murmurs swept the room. I saw it clearly then. Olivia had skillfully bought their loyalty with inflated promises and minor favors. "Just ask yourselves why she pushed this project through so quickly," I urged the crowd. "Why rely on consultants who never conducted a site visit? Why disregard decades of natural equilibrium?" Olivia's smile was strained. "Motion to adjourn this unproductive—" "Hold on," Tom cut in, his voice strained. "My insurance adjuster just left. He said the flooding is clearly due to disrupted groundwater patterns. They're denying the claim." The room erupted into anxious crosstalk. Olivia hammered her gavel, but the worried buzz only intensified. After the meeting, I caught Ben outside. "There's more," he whispered, glancing around. "I did some digging on that drainage contractor, Cascade Drainage Solutions. It's registered to Olivia's brother-in-law. She's likely getting kickbacks." "Can you prove it?" My heart pounded. "I'm working on tracing the money flow, but watch your back. This woman plays dirty." That night, I installed several motion-activated security cameras around my house. If Olivia was truly corrupt, she wouldn't hesitate to silence dissent. Predictably, around midnight, one camera caught a hooded figure fiddling with my main water meter. Though disguised, I recognized the build and movements. It was Kevin, the PREA maintenance supervisor. He was trying to manufacture evidence framing me for the water problems. I immediately backed up the footage onto 3 separate cloud drives. This was escalating rapidly. Over the following week, 3 more basements reported flooding. The community swimming pool developed a large crack, likely from shifting ground pressure. Even some of Olivia's staunchest supporters began whispering doubts about her leadership. I immersed myself in researching state water rights regulations, discovering the PREA had likely violated multiple environmental codes. Major alterations to natural drainage systems required specific permits. Permits they'd never applied for. At the public library, I uncovered old newspaper clippings about Olivia's tenure at a previous HOA. She'd resigned abruptly amid rumors of financial mismanagement. The pattern was disturbingly consistent, but I needed concrete proof of wrongdoing here. Then Brenda showed up at my doorstep, tear tracks streaking her makeup. "My prize roses are dying," she sobbed. "The entire backyard is a swamp." Olivia swore this wouldn't impact surrounding properties. "Did she promise you anything else, Brenda?" I asked gently. She hesitated, biting her lip, then nodded miserably. "A seat on the board. Influence over the landscaping committee budget. But now—" She waved a hand helplessly towards her waterlogged garden. I carefully laid out my research. The old hydrology report, the suspended license of her brother-in-law, the permit violations. Her eyes grew wider with each document. "She played us all," Brenda whispered, horrified. She looked up, determination replacing despair. "How can I help expose her?" She revealed Olivia had sent emails offering various residents special considerations in exchange for their support on key votes. Together, we started building a solid case. Encouraged by Brenda's reversal, more neighbors came forward, sharing stories of veiled threats and quid pro quo offers. Olivia hadn't just made a bad decision. She'd woven a complex web of corruption to enrich herself. The State Department of Environmental Protection finally launched a formal investigation after I submitted a comprehensive complaint package. Investigators began appearing in Pine Ridge, taking water samples, soil cores, and interviewing residents door to door. Olivia attempted damage control, hosting lavish wine and cheese socials where she spun elaborate narratives about necessary upgrades and unforeseen complications. But attendance dwindled with each event. Late one night, poring over financial statements Brenda had discreetly copied from a board meeting binder, I found it: the smoking gun. Regular, substantial payments to Cascade Drainage Solutions perfectly coincided with large, unexplained deposits into Olivia's personal investment account, routed through a shell company called OV Solutions. I finally had her cornered, but Olivia wasn't one to surrender easily. The next morning, a certified letter arrived, a cease and desist notice from a high-powered law firm threatening immediate legal action for defamation and harassment. She had officially declared war. I was ready. Ironically, water chose that very afternoon's emergency board meeting to erupt through Olivia Vance's own high-end kitchen floor. She was mid-sentence, vehemently denying any link between the spring drainage and the neighborhood's escalating water woes, when her imported ceramic tiles suddenly buckled upwards with a sickening crack. "Everybody get out!" I yelled as pressurized water sprayed towards the recessed lighting. Board members scrambled for the exits, their expensive loafers soaked in the rapidly expanding indoor pond. Olivia stood frozen amidst the chaos, watching helplessly as her granite countertops began to crack under the immense hydrostatic pressure. This isn't possible," she stammered repeatedly. But I knew exactly what was happening. The stressed underground aquifer had finally breached its weakest point, directly beneath the home of the person who had recklessly disturbed its natural balance. Outside, stunned residents gathered in small, bewildered groups. Brenda clutched her rescued meeting minutes. The page is now water-stained, but crucial evidence. News now: 5 vans screeched to a halt within minutes. Someone had clearly tipped them off. "Is it true the HOA president's own house is flooding?" A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. Before I could respond, Olivia burst through her front door, hair askew, pointing an accusing finger straight at me. "This is his fault. Sabotage. He did this to discredit me." The camera swung wildly between us. I focused on staying calm. "I've been warning the board about precisely this risk for weeks," I stated evenly. "Nature doesn't adhere to HOA bylaws." That's when Dennis, our usually quiet treasurer, stepped forward, trembling slightly but holding a thick folder. "I can't keep quiet any longer," he announced, his voice surprisingly firm. "These are the real financial records. Olivia's been funneling association funds for years." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Olivia lunged towards him, trying to snatch the folder, but Dennis held it tightly. Camera flashes illuminated the chaotic scene. Show them page 7, I called out, remembering the suspicious transactions I'd identified. Dennis flipped open the folder, revealing the damning wire transfers to OV Solutions, perfectly matching the inflated payments made to Cascade Drainage Solutions. It's a frame-up. Lies! Olivia shrieked, her voice cracking. The water pouring from her house seemed a perfect, gushing metaphor for her collapsing deception. State investigators arrived by late afternoon. My earlier complaint had put them on notice, but the dramatic public flooding incident, especially at the president's own home, accelerated everything. Now, they descended on Pine Ridge Estates in force, methodically collecting evidence. I guided them to key locations, pointing out how the drainage work violated state environmental codes. They took extensive soil samples, measured groundwater levels across the neighborhood, and conducted formal interviews with dozens of residents. Brenda emerged as a key witness. She explicitly promised me preferential treatment on my sunroom permits, she told investigators tearfully. She claimed removing the spring would make everyone's property values soar. More neighbors corroborated similar stories. Olivia had systematically offered incentives, waived fees, coveted committee appointments, expedited architectural reviews. Her corruption was pervasive. Simultaneously, insurance adjusters dispatched their own forensic engineers, finding documented proof of HOA negligence and disregard for environmental warnings. They began issuing blanket denials for flooding claims. Residents faced catastrophic financial losses. We put our trust in her, Tom lamented, standing beside his ruined basement belongings piled on the curb. Now, many of us might lose our homes. I quickly organized a community-wide meeting at the local school gymnasium, neutral ground. Residents needed factual answers and, more importantly, a path forward. We can fix the environmental damage, I explained, presenting preliminary restoration plans developed with Ben. But the first step is removing the corrupt leadership entirely and pursuing legal avenues to recover the stolen funds. That very night, my security cameras captured Olivia hastily loading boxes into her luxury SUV. I immediately alerted the sheriff's department. Deputies intercepted her near the county line. Inside the vehicle, they found PREA laptops, financial records, and a portable shredder filled with confetti. Her arrest dominated the local news cycle. HOA president apprehended fleeing scene amid flood scandal. The accompanying mugshot showed her normally impeccable designer outfit stained with mud, her expression a mixture of fury and disbelief, a stark contrast to her previously polished public image. Under interrogation, facing overwhelming evidence, Olivia finally cracked. The full extent of her scheme came to light. Years of systematic embezzlement, not just in Pine Ridge, but potentially across multiple HOAs where she'd previously held positions. Her pattern involved targeting communities with unique natural assets, manufacturing problems, and then profiting from exorbitant solutions. The trial proceeded swiftly. I testified about discovering the 1961 hydrology report, documenting the illegal drainage work, and the attempted tampering with my water meter. Brenda recounted the bribery attempts. Dennis meticulously walked the jury through the fraudulent financial transactions. Olivia's defense tried portraying her as a misunderstood visionary, acting for the community's long-term benefit. But prosecutor Laura Hayes systematically dismantled their arguments. The security footage of Olivia exchanging cash with contractors in a dimly lit parking garage proved particularly damning. Guilty on all counts, the jury foreman announced after just a few hours of deliberation. Olivia visibly slumped in her chair as the judge enumerated her crimes. Multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, violations of state environmental laws, and racketeering. Ms. Vance, you exploited your position of trust for personal enrichment, inflicting immense and lasting harm upon this community, the judge stated sternly. Therefore, I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison and order full restitution to be paid to the Pine Ridge Estates Association and affected homeowners. As bailiffs led a handcuffed Olivia away, she shot me a final venomous glare. I hope you're satisfied, she spat. I'm not satisfied, I replied honestly, meeting her gaze. But I am relieved the truth prevailed. Outside the courthouse, news crews swarmed. Pine Ridge Estates faced a daunting recovery. Insurance companies remained steadfast in denying most claims due to the proven man-made cause of the disaster. Many families were confronting devastating repair bills and uncertain futures. Kevin, the former maintenance supervisor who had carried out Olivia's orders to drain the spring, approached me hesitantly. Look, I'm really sorry, he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Olivia threatened my job if I didn't cooperate. My daughter has serious medical needs. I couldn't risk losing our health insurance. I understood his desperate situation, even if his actions had contributed to the mess. What's important now, I told him quietly, is focusing on how we help this community rebuild. That evening, standing at my kitchen window, I watched the relentless rhythm of emergency pumps draining yet another neighbor's flooded basement. The spring's absence had triggered a devastating cascade of consequences none of us could have fully anticipated. Property values had plummeted by 35% almost overnight. Several families had already been forced to sell at a loss and move away, unable to shoulder the unexpected repair costs. My phone rang. It was Ben, the hydrologist. "I've been running simulations based on the latest water table readings," he said, his tone urgent. "We need to begin restoring that spring function immediately, or the geological damage could become irreversible." "How soon is immediately?" I asked, dread coiling in my stomach. "Ideally within the next 8 months. Any longer, and the aquifer itself might destabilize permanently. That wouldn't just impact Pine Ridge, it could affect groundwater levels in 3 adjacent communities." The immense weight of responsibility settled heavily onto my shoulders. Olivia's avarice had ignited this crisis, but now, the burden of fixing it fell squarely upon the community she'd betrayed. As a light rain began to fall, I watched water pooling ominously in yards that were once meticulously landscaped, symbols of suburban pride. Nature was forcefully reclaiming its territory, and the cost was proving far higher than anyone could have ever imagined. 8 months later, I stood knee-deep in mud, shouting directions to the restoration crew. "Easy with that backhoe near the main channel," I yelled, my voice hoarse. The crisp morning air buzzed with purposeful activity. Engineers conferred over blueprints, volunteers hauled away debris, and heavy equipment carefully reshaped the land around the former spring site. Undoing Olivia's damage was a monumental task. Brenda approached, navigating the muddy terrain in sturdy rubber boots, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "You know, I never thought I'd miss your mud patch so much," she admitted with a rueful smile, handing me a coffee. Her journey from Olivia's staunch supporter to dedicated environmental advocate had been remarkable. "Good news," Ben announced, looking up from his tablet. "The aquifer pressure is finally starting to stabilize. Readings are looking much better, but we're still in a critical recovery phase." Restoring Willow Creek Spring wasn't just about reclaiming my property's heritage. It was about the ecological survival of our entire neighborhood. The federal disaster relief funds, combined with the assets seized from Olivia, barely scratched the surface of the total restoration costs. Every resident contributed in some way. Retirees organized food drives for the work crews, teenagers volunteered for cleanup shifts on weekends, local businesses donated materials. 3 weeks into the intensive restoration phase, we hit our first major snag. An improperly installed utility line, rushed through by Olivia without the required permits months earlier, ruptured under the strain of the excavation work, flooding the main site with contaminated runoff. Progress ground to a halt as we dealt with hazardous material cleanup and damaged equipment. "This is just typical," one exasperated neighbor fumed during an emergency planning meeting. "Even locked up, Olivia's still finding ways to screw us over." "No," I corrected firmly, addressing the anxious group. "This is the consequence of cutting corners and ignoring regulations. We're committed to doing this restoration correctly, adhering to every environmental standard no matter how long it takes." The real breakthrough occurred unexpectedly. While carefully excavating near the spring's original source, the team uncovered remnants of an ancient Native American water management system. Skillfully laid stone channels designed to naturally regulate the spring's flow centuries before Pine Ridge Estates was ever conceived. Our consulting indigenous knowledge keeper, Dr. Elena Soto, was visibly moved. "Your spring wasn't just a decorative element," she explained to the assembled crew and residents. "It was a central component of a sophisticated, sustainable network that maintained ecological balance throughout this entire valley." This discovery fundamentally shifted our approach. Instead of merely recreating the recent version of the spring, we integrated this traditional ecological wisdom with modern hydrology principles. The project evolved into a showcase for sustainable water management, attracting positive attention from regional environmental organizations. Local schools arranged field trips for students to learn about watershed ecology firsthand. Brenda spearheaded a community garden project utilizing water-wise irrigation techniques learned from Dr. Soto. Even neighbors who were initially skeptical began to appreciate the intricate connection between the natural environment and the health of their community. The day the restored spring was officially reopened, hundreds of residents gathered. A collective cheer went up as the first clear, cool water bubbled to the surface. Children squealed with delight, while many adults wiped away tears of relief. The gentle, burbling sound of flowing water, absent for so long, felt like healing music. "I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who believed in this restoration," I said, addressing the emotional crowd. "And perhaps especially to those who initially had doubts, but were open-minded enough to learn and become part of the solution." Brenda stepped forward, now officially the new PREA president. "I'm incredibly proud to announce the ratification of our completely revised association bylaws," she declared. "Moving forward, all decisions impacting our shared natural environment will require mandatory community consultation and independent expert review. No more secret deals, no more rushed approvals." Contractors continued working through the following winter, installing upgraded permeable drainage systems throughout the neighborhood while allowing the aquifer more time to fully rebalance. By the time spring arrived, a palpable sense of cautious optimism had returned to Pine Ridge Estates. Lawns dried out, foundations were repaired, and the community collectively absorbed the hard-learned lessons about misplaced trust and the dangers of unchecked authority. As water flowed freely once again from my restored Willow Creek spring, neighborhood children often gathered to watch dragonflies skim its surface. Their sense of wonder served as a constant reminder of why this long, difficult fight had been so essential, safeguarding natural beauty and ecological integrity for the generations yet to come. Olivia Vance's corrupt empire had crumbled as spectacularly as her water-damaged mansion. But from the wreckage of that disaster, our community was slowly, painstakingly emerging. Stronger, wiser, and more interconnected than ever before. Olivia's former mansion, seized by the state as part of the restitution settlement, was eventually repurposed. It became the Pine Ridge Nature Learning Center. Inside, informative displays detailed the environmental disaster, the corruption that caused it, and the community's recovery efforts. A prominent exhibit showcased copies of the fraudulent hydrology reports and incriminating emails, a stark public warning about the potential abuses of power. I occasionally volunteered to lead tours, sharing our neighborhood story. "The spring taught us a vital lesson," I'd explain to visitors. "Everything in nature is interconnected. When we try to dominate or control it without truly understanding it, we inevitably create far bigger problems down the line." Things weren't perfect, of course. Some families, their trust irrevocably broken, never moved back. Others continued to struggle with the lingering financial burdens of repairs. But overall, we had learned to collaborate, to question authority respectfully but firmly, and to value the natural systems that sustain us all. 18 months after the restoration was complete, Willow Creek Spring received official protected status from the state. No future HOA board could unilaterally decide to alter or drain it without undergoing rigorous environmental impact assessments and public comment periods. We had embedded legal safeguards to prevent another Olivia Vance from exploiting our community. One of the most validating moments came during an unannounced follow-up inspection by state environmental regulators. Their test confirmed that the local aquifer had fully stabilized and water quality exceeded baseline standards. "The way your community responded to this crisis is truly commendable," the lead inspector told Brenda and me. "You've effectively transformed a potential ecological catastrophe into a model for responsible environmental stewardship." Brenda and I sometimes sat by the restored spring during quiet evenings, watching the fireflies emerge as dusk settled. "Can you believe I once called this a messy mud patch?" she'd muse, shaking her head. "I was so focused on superficial appearances." "We all were, in a way," I'd reply. "We allowed someone to convince us that nature was an inconvenience, something to be paved over or controlled." The spring had transcended its physical form. It became a living symbol of resilience, accountability, and renewal. Families held picnics along its banks, wedding photographers favored it as a scenic backdrop, and new residents moving into Pine Ridge learned its history and readily pledged to protect it. As I write this, children are participating in a workshop at the Nature Learning Center, identifying native pollinator plants in the educational garden. Solar panels on the center's roof help power its operations. Rain barrels dot the landscape, collecting water for sustainable irrigation. We haven't just recovered, we've actively become the change we needed. Olivia Vance served her 12-year sentence and reportedly moved out of state upon release, fading from public view. I sometimes wonder if she ever truly grasped the full impact of her actions. Not just the millions in environmental and property damage, but the profound violation of community trust. Willow Creek Spring flows clear and strong today. Its gentle, constant murmur serves as an ever-present reminder of nature's enduring power and persistence. What started as one individual's self-serving greed ultimately catalyzed our community's awakening. We learned, the hard way, that the most devastating crises can sometimes pave the way for the most meaningful transformations. Watching new families move into Pine Ridge, drawn partly by the story of our environmental comeback, I realize Olivia inadvertently gave us something valuable. She starkly illustrated the perils of unchecked power, the cost of prioritizing profit over responsibility, and the danger of ignoring nature's inherent wisdom. Now, every ripple on the spring's surface seems to whisper the same essential truths: respect, balance, vigilance. The spring that Olivia Vance tried to destroy has become the vibrant, cherished heart of our reborn neighborhood. A living testament to what's possible when people choose cooperation over control, understanding over exploitation, and ecological harmony over short-sighted gain.